Eiichiro Oda's manga One Piece is one of the most popular manga in the history of comics. In typical shonen fashion, a shonen is a tale of adventure and initiation. One Piece tells the story of a young hero on a quest for nothing less than a treasure. You're listening to Voice of Jewels, a podcast from L'École, School of Jewelry Arts, supported by Cleef Arpels, unveiling the stories and secrets behind history's most fascinating jewels.
We find jewelry in treasure chests in every comics around the world.
Léonard Pouy, Professor of Art History and Content and Transmission Manager at L'École, School of Jewelry Arts.
The topic of jewelry, the topic of treasure chest, is actually a treasure for every comic book artist because there are so many stories to be told. It's a topic of fascination, of mystery, of eroticism even sometimes. And jewelry can also be used as attributes, symbolical for many, many characters, either comical or for adventure stories. And this would be the case in comics, in Franco-Belgian comic strips, also in mangas, as it is the case in One Piece. So the very first page of the One Piece story, of the One Piece manga, shows a Gold Roger, a pirate, Gold Roger, which is of course a reference to Long John Silver's from Treasure Island. And he says, "My treasure, I will give it to you, but you need to find it yourself in a way." And it is everything a man can dream of. It's quite mysterious because we won't have much more information in the 100 and more volumes which are published until today.
First published in 1997, the series now boasts over 107 volumes. But behind this manga, with its zany, sometimes outlandish, often monstrous characters, lies one fascinating fact. The whole saga was actually inspired directly by the story of a real pirate and a mysteriously elusive treasure. July 7th, 1730, Saint-Denis de la Réunion. While dawn rises, Olivier Levasseur, also called La Bouse, the buzzard, knows his adventures have come to an end. He won't have the taste of salt in his mouth, or feel the sting of the sun rays or the wind on his skin anymore. He will never smell the acrid smell of the ocean, of gunpowder and blood again. Yes, this time the show is definitely over. He will never watch the infinite miracle of the foam-capped sea crests again. Those countless waves that turn the surface of the globe into hammered silver, or even at times into a vast expanse of gold when the sunlight reflects upon it. For the French corsair, once turned pirate, it's time to drop anchor. For good. Or rather, to sink the ship with its treasure on board. In spite of the crowd of onlookers who came to watch his execution, La Bouse is suddenly feeling lonely. How silly, he thinks. A self-respecting pirate doesn't hold on to, but splashes out his wealth. It's in his blood. So why die taking all his riches with him? He might not be able to sail anymore, but others are, provided they get talked into it. This way the wonders he seized may not be forever lost. That's why, from the gallows, he suddenly cries out from the top of his lungs, "My fortune will belong to the man who earns it." At that very moment, legend has it, he tossed a piece of paper inscribed with a cryptogram towards the crowd. A coded sequence of symbols acting as a map that lead precisely to the hidden treasure's spot.
If you know about La Bouse and it's a big speech, it's impossible not to think about him when you read One Piece. And there is a clear parallel. It's like a provocation, even when La Bouse actually gives this idea that there is something to be taken somewhere. And this will also be for One Piece the very beginning of the story, the true quest, the true adventure. It will launch all the narration. It's quite interesting to see that one treasure is enough, jewelry is enough, to have crazy and amazing stories to be told. It's quite interesting to see that if jewelry is very important for pirates, pirates are also quite important for jewelry makers. When you think about someone like Attilio Conegliato in Venice, which was heavily inspired by Renaissance jewelry, but also by patterns like crown skulls and bones, which are reminiscent of this whole culture of pirates.
The horse carriage that is taking Labuse to his execution is wobbling down the dusty road. The rocking reminds him of La Nossa Senhora de Cabo, the Cape's Virgin, the Portuguese Navy's flagship he took over in 1721. He had snatched it from the Viceroy of the East Indies himself and renamed it Victorious. In his empty, shackled hands, Olivier Levasseur can still feel the precious objects he hoarded during years of looting from the Caribbean to the Indian Ocean, from the Bahamas to Madagascar and to Bourbon Island. In his mind, he is caressing gold and silver ingots, cascades of piastres, rivers of diamonds, and those odd emerald-studded jewels.
In 1721, on the island of the Réunion, the French pirate Labuse found the Vierge du Cap treasure, which is the most considerable treasure ever to be associated with pirates' history, and which would represent nowadays nearly 5 billion euros. Once again, this is not probably accurate, and we don't know exactly if it were money coins or jewelry. Sometimes it's quite confusing. We have treasure chest hoards only with coins, sometimes with jewels. A very important element when you study treasures is that you can actually study them. When you're a kid, you hear about the story of dragons, of sorcerers, of mermaids. None of them actually exist, but pirates and treasures used to exist and still exist today, actually. And quite often we find shipwrecks containing chests, containing hoards. We know the Maravillas ship, which was found in the Bahamas, a boat from the 17th century, which is now in the Maritime Museum of the Bahamas.
In Saint-Denis de la Réunion, on that day in July 1730, the executioner did not falter. The crowd goes silent. And as Labuse feels he is taking his final breath, as he is feeling engulfed into the depths, he suddenly catches sight of thousands of multicolored sparkles around him. He remembers all the treasures he once coveted, some of which he never managed to find. All these treasures sunk by battles, storms, and rot. These jewels that had vanished and were now slumbering among fish, seaweed, and corals. He smiles. The most beautiful treasures are those which still lie in front of our very eyes.
So we need to say the truth. There is one issue, is that the Labuse's treasure has never been found. Many pirates, many adventurers, many explorers went after it from the Bahamas archipelago to the Maurice Island. But after nearly 3 centuries, this treasure is still nowhere to be found.
Voice of Jewels, a podcast from L'École School of Jewelry Arts, supported by Cleef Arpels. Written by Martin Quenehen and Aram Kebabdjian. Performed by Edoardo Ballerini and produced by Bababam. With the participation of Léonard Pouy, Professor of Art History and Content and Transmission Manager at L'École School of Jewelry Arts.